Hello, ANOMACON. My name is Ty Roberts. I host a podcast and show called Total Disclosure, which is produced by TDP Studios in Boston, Massachusetts, where I am right now. My presentation is something that is very close to home for me, as the UFOs and nuke connection is something that I've been working tirelessly with, not just Congress, but also the nuclear witnesses, in an attempt to get them on to a public hearing, in order to better tell the world what happened to them and what they experienced. It's been a harrowing journey. We've made so many leaps, so many bounds, and I am so grateful for everything that I have been able to do for these witnesses. So I wanted to start off with a couple of things before I get into the formal presentation. I don't usually do types of things like this. I'm more of a podcaster, journalist, but I am. I just did the Exeter UFO Festival, Contact in the Desert. So I'm getting more into the rhythm of doing these things in front of people, and it's just been such an amazing ride. I am really, really hoping that you guys get something out of this, because the phenomena being as complex as it is, we owe it to these men. We owe it to these men and women who served our country at the highest levels, to be involved in our nuclear program. You can't just be any, run-of-the-mill officer. You have to be vetted to a very high degree. So I wanted to start off with a couple things. So this is actually from Contact in the Desert, when I interviewed Bob Salas and Dave Shindley together. So I wanted to give you a quick look at that. Here we go.
Start it up again at a certain particular point in the manual. This is his description of his activity, all right?
Okay.
And he says, all of a sudden the missile shuts down for no reason. Goes down. Okay, so he starts over in his checklist, right? Gets to that same point in his checklist, and the missile goes down again. And he said during this period, he felt like there was a beam of static electricity. He could feel it coming down the tube, where he was.
Right. So
from apparently
like the hair stand up.
Apparently from this object.
Wild. So I was interviewing Bob Salas and Dave Shindley from Minot Air Force Base and Malmstrom Air Force Base. And right now, as you could see, the timing was impeccable on this one. As Bob points up, referencing the story, I followed his finger up and I look up. The minute I looked up, the siren starts to wail and we have to exit the building. It's a huge thing. It was really, really a weird moment, but let's continue.
Attention.
That's so weird.
An emergency has been reported. All occupants walk to the nearest stairway exit and walk down to your assigned re-entry floor or main lobby.
Where does he go? To this floor?
Do not use the elevator.
And I looked up.
Walk to the nearest stairway. Do not use the elevator. Walk to the nearest stairway.
Bob's like, let's get out of here, guys.
Go on. Attention. An emergency has been reported.
I don't want to leave.
All occupants walk to the nearest stairway exit.
Sorry, we just had a future Tyler. We just had that fire alarm. So edit that part out, obviously.
Yourself.
Okay.
But keep that part where I look in, because that was kind of funny.
So again, it really it goes. By the way, the telepathy tapes demonstration was also happening at that moment. So it was a very mirror of the experience that, Bob had in 1967 in the Malmstrom case. I've been able to facilitate 2 briefings now with Bob Salas, and I want to show you a clip from the first one. Again, I want to show these things before I start the presentation.
And they also exonerated me, if that's the right word, from my NDA, which I had signed.
Really?
Yes, they told me, don't worry about your NDA, just tell us what you know. So, and I got a letter from them stating that my story that I gave them is now an official record, historical record in the Aero archives. So I don't know if you can get access to that, but it's...
Was it in the report at all that they put together this year?
No.
So it's a big thing that they left out.
Oh yeah,
Big thing they left out.
Okay, so it's truly just, that report can be totally discounted.
it's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, my last question to them after I gave my presentation was, are you going to check with the Air Force to verify any part of my story? And they said no. Because they had tried to verify a previous account that was Robert Jacobs. I don't know if you're familiar with that story. He was stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base with a very advanced camera, video camera. And he shot a video of a test flight of a dummy warhead. It was on an Atlas missile on the Pacific Test Range. And so the dummy warhead leaves the final stage and is flying towards its so-called target in the test area. And the UFO comes over and fires laser lights
Really?
at this dummy warhead. In fact, it flew a circle around this.
So I will stop that there. So that was a briefing that I facilitated after the November 2024 hearing that I was at. And then I just want to quickly show this one. This is the latest one because, again, working behind the scenes with Congress, with members of Congress, first with Mace, who chaired that November hearing, now Burleson. After the September 9th hearing, I set up a briefing for Bob with Eric Burleson, congressman out of Missouri. So I want to show you a little bit of that. Part 2.
Congressman, thank you so much for sitting down with me and allowing me to tell my story, which has been a dream of mine for a long time to just speak to Congress about it.
Well, thank you for your courage and your love for this country.
Absolutely. On March 24th, 1967, I was part of a 2-man crew assigned to what we called Oscar Flight. It was near Roy, Montana, about 100 miles to the east of Great Falls, Montana. And what we would do on these tour of duties, 24-hour period tour of duty, we would go out and monitor our missile systems, which we had at that time 10 Minuteman I ICBMs, all targeted, ready to go, if given the order, of course, by the president, and to make sure that they were in an operational mode and ready to go. We had 6 security people upstairs, security guards, and we were underground. So I wanted to show you a couple of diagrams just so we'll get the right reference. So this is a cutaway.
Okay.
Cutaway of the what we call launch control facility. And you see that capsule underground.
Yes.
That's where we were located as a crew. And that we had all the equipment down there that was needed.
So the buildings on top just look like simple buildings.
They were just for the security people we had upstairs. So there were rooms, bedrooms for them and their facilities. But we, as a crew, a launch crew, were located 60 feet underground.
So, okay, it is safe to say that I have a vested interest in the nuclear connection. And that's what I want to talk about today. I've done a lot to try to facilitate, meetings with nuclear witnesses and members of Congress. I've achieved a lot of those goals, but we need more help, more pressure from the people and writing to your members of Congress, demanding that these witnesses get to speak at an open hearing. So that is the point of what I am doing, and try to further that cause, because again, these men and these women, there are of they're of the highest sanctity and highest of clearance levels, and for them to not be taken seriously, it's a shame. It really is. It's a shame. So to begin here, 79 years ago, on July 16th, 1945, a silent desert outside Alamogordo, New Mexico, erupted with the first human-made nuclear explosion, the Trinity test. In that blinding flash, humanity announced itself as a species capable of planetary scale destruction. And if any intelligence, human or otherwise, was monitoring Earth, Trinity would have been a beacon brighter than anything we had ever sent skyward. In the years immediately following Trinity, strange aerial phenomena began clustering around the very places where nuclear secrets were guarded. From 1948 to 1951, brilliant green fireballs repeatedly streaked over Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories. The U.S. Air Force launched Project Twinkle to investigate, and physicist Lincoln LaPaz suspected these objects were artificial. Even skeptics admitted the concentration over top secret, atomic labs was alarming. Through the 1950s and the early 1960s, sightings continued near and around nuclear test ranges and weapons storage areas. Some of the most dramatic incidents were yet to come. In September 1966, Launch Control Officer Dave Schindele at Minot Air Force Base experienced an event he stayed silent about for years. A glowing object reportedly hovered near his missile silo. Then his nuclear missiles became disabled. 6 months later, on March 16, 1967, at Malmstrom Air Force Base, 10 Minuteman missiles in Echo flight suddenly went offline within seconds. Launch officer Bob Salas recalls a frantic call from security, a glowing disc hovering over the front gate. Moments later, every missile under his watch was rendered inoperable. The Air Force blamed an internal power fault, yet no one has been able to fully explain how multiple independent systems failed simultaneously. In October 1968, another major incident, the Minot B-52 radar case. A B-52 crew, ground radar, airborne radar, and ground observers all tracked an unknown object near Minot's nuclear complex. The documentation remains amongst the most detailed multi-sensor cases in history, and it has never been resolved. In the early 1970s, Mario Woods, a security policeman at Ellsworth Air Force Base, described a bright object hovering over the missile field, codename November 5. Ordered to intercept, Woods and his teammate could not approach. The object moved silently and it vanished. By 1975, Strategic Air Command bases across the U.S. and Canada, Loring, Wurtsmith, Malmstrom, Minot, all reported repeated intrusions by unknown lights or helicopters directly over weapons storage areas. NORAD and National Military Command Center logs show scrambles and alerts, yet no intruder was ever identified. Beyond U.S. borders, after the Soviet Union collapsed, journalist George Knapp learned of a 1982 incident in present-day Ukraine.
And I can tell you, you'll see those files that I shared with you. They did find stuff. There was an incident in October of 1982 over an ICBM base where UFOs popped up, was observed over this base where the missiles are pointed at us, United States. These UFOs perform incredible maneuvers. They split apart, they fuse back together, they'd appear and disappear. And right at the end of this 4-hour period, the launch control codes for the ICBMs lit up. Something entered the correct codes. The missiles were fired up and ready to launch, and they could not shut it down. The Russian officers were panicking. The UFOs they disappeared. The launch control system goes back to normal. Colonel Sokolov and his team came in, took the thing apart, could not figure out what it was. It wasn't a power surge or EMPs or some of the baloney excuses that our country has given for similar events involving our nuclear missiles. They thought it was a message from wherever the UFOs were from. And that's a chilling thing. I mean, we were a couple of seconds away from World War III starting, and the UFOs were responsible for it.
The missiles did not fire, but for 15 terrifying seconds, the possibility of an unintended nuclear launch and subsequent nuclear World War III became so real, all too real. Couldn't imagine being in that room. Just waiting for the world to essentially end, and there's nothing you can do about it. The pattern didn't stop with the Cold War. On October 23rd, 2010, F.E. Warren Air Force Base temporarily lost command and control of 50 Minuteman III missiles. Let me say that again. 50 Minuteman missiles. The Air Force blamed a hardware fault, yet multiple witnesses reported a UFO overhead. Meanwhile, between 2014 and 2015, dozens of coordinated drone overflights targeted French nuclear power plants, again prompting this to not be just a local United States issue, but a global targeted strategy. Operators were never caught, showing that unidentified incursions over nuclear sites remain a present-day security risk. Statistical studies add weight. A peer-reviewed analysis of France's national UAP database found sightings disproportionately clustered near nuclear sites, even after correcting for population density and geography. And again, even if there's a sensor bias, we do have more sensors, near our nuclear facilities. It doesn't really matter because at our most sensitive facilities, at our most dangerous facilities, something's happening, and we cannot ignore that or chalk it up to sensor bias. Air Force officer Bob Jacobs filmed a dummy nuclear warhead test. And according to Jacobs, the footage showed a disc-shaped object maneuvering around the dummy warhead, coming into the screen.
It flew into the frame like this, and it shot a beam of light at the warhead. Now, remember, all this stuff is flying at several thousand miles an hour. So this thing fires a beam of light at the warhead, hits it, fires another beam of light, and then flies out the way it came in. And the warhead tumbles out of space. Now, when the lights came on, Major Mansman turned around and looked at me and said, "Were you guys screwing around up there?" And I said, "No, sir." And he said, "What was that?" And I said, "It looks to me like we got a UFO."
Taken together, these incidents suggest a consistent theme. Whether humanity's nuclear capabilities are concentrated, unidentified objects sometimes appear behaving as if to observe or interfere. Skeptics argue this reflects that sensor bias. We watch nuclear sites most closely, so that's where anomalies tend to be noticed. The Pentagon's AARO has acknowledged this possibility, and as of its 2024 report, found no verified evidence of extraterrestrial craft. Note the word extraterrestrial. But even collection bias cannot easily explain multi-sensor cases like Minot 68 or simultaneous missile shutdowns like Malmstrom 67. The national security implications are enormous. Even if every case were foreign drones, electronic warfare tests, it would mean adversaries have penetrated the heart of nuclear deterrent from the NATO countries and maybe even the BRICS countries. So again, even if a fraction represents something beyond our known technology, the stakes rise drastically and exponentially from national security to planetary security. Now, imagine disclosure, a confirmation of a non-human intelligence arriving in the middle of a nuclear crisis. A radar anomaly over missile fields, a sudden missile glitch. Social media erupts with videos of strange lights. Leaders fearing sabotage, they go on high alert. Then comes the announcement, these objects are not ours. That is ontological shock under maximum stress. Civilians would face the twin terrors of nuclear war and at the same time, proof that we are not alone. And we never have been. Political systems could fracture under that panic. Adversaries might miscalculate. We might miscalculate, interpreting unknowns as attacks. Even if extraterrestrial visitors meant no harm, the timing could trigger catastrophe. This is why we must act. We must take the testimony of the men like Salas, like Schindler, like Woods, like Jacobs, and others very seriously. These were trained, cleared professionals, trusted with the world's most dangerous weapons. They reported what they saw because they believed it mattered. 79 years after Trinity, nuclear weapons remain humanity's brightest and most dangerous beacons. Whether the intruders are foreign drones, black projects, or something beyond our understanding, the pattern, it's undeniable. We need open data, rigorous investigation, and somber analysis before an unidentified object over a missile silo becomes the match that lights the nuclear fuse. Because if disclosure ever comes in the heart of a nuclear standoff, it will not feel like the wonder or triumph. It will feel like the world cracking open. Again, my name's Ty. I host the podcast and show Total Disclosure. I really hope that you can take something out of this. The nuclear connection is something that, I mean, it's so clear and present in a phenomena that not many conclusions can be drawn from. We tend to see the same things happening over and over. Not to mention the craft that are being described by Salas, by Schindele, by Mario Woods, by Bob Jacobs, by Bob Jameson. So many people, Jeffrey Nucitelli, they're all describing these orange orb craft that are gaseous, don't have super form. They look like like a gaseous material, like consistently floating, like no solidarity to it. In the Mario Woods case, as they approached the missile site, codenamed November 5, the atmosphere in the car that they were approaching in became so thick that Mario and his teammate Michael, they were not able to breathe, and subsequently they passed out after waking up some hour or two after the event, where that caused them to go to sleep, if you will. And Mario tried to climb out of the car, but he was just too weak, and the atmosphere was so thick all of a sudden, and it seemed like it was purposefully done. They woke up, and Michael was in a catatonic state, right? And Mario gains a semblance of cognition, and realizes that they are miles from where they were when the event took place, when they were approaching the missile silo. They woke up, and their truck had been transported over a mile away from the nuclear missile silo, and they were facing the opposite way towards this cliff or canyon. And Mario's story is unique in the sense that he was hypnotically regressed, and subsequently remembered being brought aboard the ship. So I just want to say this. There is so much more going on that meets the eye, and maybe the world isn't ready for that the abduction stuff, and maybe the Congress isn't ready for that. But there's a very clear and apparent, there's a very clear pattern to these types of things and these events happening near our most strategic, our most secure facilities. And generally, the craft that are being seen are all, resembling each other. So, this is something that I think the world needs to pay attention to. It really, really does, because we have the vantage point of someone who was in the capsule, 60 feet underground with Bob Salas. We have the vantage point of a topside guard in Dave Schindele. We have a military policeman's perspective about responding to a missile silo that had one of these crafts over it, with Mario Woods. And then we have Bob Jacobs' testimony filming a dummy warhead being launched. So, we have a lot of ground and a lot of perspectives from the nuclear program covered. And we have people from all of these walks saying, hey, guys, something weird is going on, and we owe it to the public, to national security, to global security, to take a look, investigate with serious rigor and serious tone. The stigma of the aliens, needs to go away. And again, that word extraterrestrial, when Arrow says they have no evidence of extraterrestrial beings, well, there's a reason we call them UFOs. No one should be saying that a UFO equals alien. The U stands for unidentified. So, just because they're saying that they haven't found evidence of extraterrestrial craft, that could be a very carefully chosen statement, not per se lying, but omitting the general fact that these things, we don't know where they're coming from. Maybe they're ultra terrestrial. Maybe they, evolved alongside us or before us. And, this world isn't ours like we think it is. Maybe they're interdimensional. There are so many possibilities, that limiting it to one. I mean, it's a very clear tactic by the Department of Defense. They don't want to look inept. They don't want people knowing that, these craft are basically sending a message. They're sending a message to humanity, and they're saying these might be your most powerful weapons, but we can take control of them at any moment and shut them off or turn them on. Your move. All right, guys, make sure to thank Ryan Sprague, Somewhere in the Skies, and ANOMACON 2025. I want to say a special thank you to the crew for letting me spiel on about nukes and UFOs and nukes. It's a wonderful platform to be able to utilize and get this presentation out there, and for people to hear the views of a plethora of different types of people and different views. This is what we need more of. We need more discourse, skeptics, believers. It shouldn't matter if you don't necessarily believe, right? What matters is that we have the conversation and we're humble when we're wrong. If we make mistakes, we need to be able to say we made that mistake and move on from it. Yet this community has a real issue with that. They think that if they make a mistake with one little aspect of one little story and that comes out, then everything they've ever said will cease to be true. And, that's not the right way to look at this, because we're dealing with something that is so far out of the realm of normal that we have to be able to be wrong. We have to be humble. We really, really do. And it's not going to, if you're defending your favorite UFO guru like it's your fantasy football team, there's probably an issue. It's not going to be one person that runs this across the field. It is going to take the full team, right? Offense, defense, special teams, right? Everybody down to the ball boys and, towel guy. It's going to take every single person to get disclosure. And it's going to take you. It's going to take you getting off X, getting out there, make a difference. My name's Ty Roberts. I hope you'll check out Total Disclosure. I interview a range of people, all the way from members of Congress to scientists like Avi Loeb, Rizwan Virk, I experiencers, researchers, you name it. I've probably had them on, and the show is everything for me, because I did have a sighting when I was younger, and I had another experience in 2021 in the room that my mother died in, like at the time of her death, and that birthed the show Total Disclosure, because at the time I was doing a different podcast about movies. I was in the Hollywood area. I worked in movies and film. And my mom was always that guiding light for me. And, I won't get into the story, but, I know what I saw. I know what I've seen. This is real, guys. Whether we can make jokes, right, about little green men and probing and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, this is real. Something's happening, and we can't just put our head in the sand and pretend it's not, because that's when a chaotic disclosure might occur. And that ontological shock that these people feel when they have these sightings, imagine the world goes through that together. That would be horrendous. That would be horrendous. So we need to come together. Guys, thank you so much. I will catch you on the flip side. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. UFOs and Nukes, Pattern or Perception. Thank you again to Ryan Sprague, to Somewhere in the Skies, and to ANOMACON 2025. We'll catch you on the flip side.